Hello and welcome to Study Sessions, the literature revision podcast from St. George's. My name, of course, is Mr. Boff, and in today's episode of Making Connections, we're looking at A Christmas Carol, but even more specifically, we're going to be tracking a recurring motif. And it's a motif of temperature over the course of the novella. We're going to unpack how Dickens uses both cold and warmth to map Scrooge's emotional and spiritual metamorphosis, his emotional and spiritual journey. But even more than that, we're actually going to introduce an interesting concept. It's the concept of the conceptual metaphor. Beneath this motif is a key metaphor, and it's the idea that emotional state is temperature. It's something we're going to be looking at over the course of the episode, unpacking and thinking about in depth. So let's get started, and we'll start, sensibly enough, at the beginning with Scrooge's emotional coldness. From the very opening lines of the book, Dickens absolutely saturates Scrooge's world in literal and figurative and metaphorical frost. This motif of cold shows up, as indeed it should, it being a motif, again and again. So much so that it becomes emblematic of Scrooge's inner emotional life. Let's have a look at a really key quotation right from the beginning of the book, all the way in stave 1 at the start. Quote, "The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his gait. He carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his office in the dog days and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas." So here, look at those words. Froze, nipped, shriveled. He carried his own low temperature about with him. He iced his office. He didn't thaw it. So here, cold isn't about the weather. It's Scrooge's emotional frigidity. He's so hardened emotionally, so callous, that external warmth can't touch him. Quote, again, stave 1, "No warmth could warm, no wintry weather chill him, no wind that blew was bitterer than he." This hyperbole from Dickens drives home Scrooge's absolute detachment. Even here, the harshest wind is gentler than Scrooge. And of course, the city itself reflects this mood, foggier yet, and colder, piercing, searching, biting cold. This isn't Dickens just sort of padding out the setting. He is painting an emotional climate of isolation and misery. But in A Christmas Carol, Dickens balances all of that freeze with brilliant warmth, people and scenes that glow with generosity. Now, what I'm about to go through is not exhaustive, okay, but I want to keep this podcast episode short. So let's start with Fred. Really, really key. Scrooge's nephew. Fantastic character. This is the introduction of Fred, his first appearance in the novella in stave 1. Quote, "He had so heated himself with rapid walking in the fog and frost that he was all in a glow. His face was ruddy and handsome. His eyes sparkled and his breath smoked." So you've got heated, glow, ruddy, sparkled, smoked. All of those words are related to warmth, to heat. Fred radiates warmth. He is so altruistic, philanthropic, kind, generous of spirit. He's carving out here this stark counter image and counter temperature, we might say, to his uncle's iciness. Next, let's move on. Fezziwig's Ball. A workplace transformed into a cozy ballroom. Okay, this is obviously goes to Christmas past. Scrooge is apprenticed to Fezziwig. He's had Fezziwig as a boss. He knows what a kind, benevolent, capitalist with a conscience, if you will, should look like. Okay, he's been a recipient of that sort of kind treatment. So it makes his mistreatment and exploitation of Bob Cratchit all the more offensive. And so Fezziwig's Ball. Quote, Fuel was heaped upon the fire. The warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. Fuel was heaped, that fire, snug, warm, dry, bright. Again, the language of warmth. Think about heaping the fuel upon the fire in Stave 2, Fezziwig's Ball on Christmas Eve. Then think about Scrooge's parsimonious attitude to coal in the counting house. And that very, very famous image, enduring image of Bob Cratchit trying, and because he doesn't seem to be a man of much imagination, God bless him, is unable to warm his hands over a single candle. Okay, his fire's so small, Dickens writes, that it looks like it was just one coal. So Dickens with Fezziwig is showing us that true, kind, benevolent leadership creates what we might call warm spaces of community and of joy. And then finally, Stave 3, when the Ghost of Christmas Present takes Scrooge to go and, I suppose, spend Christmas with the Cratchits, although obviously the Cratchits can't see Scrooge there, but he's able to observe them having Christmas dinner together. The Cratchits are, in a sense, poor in wealth, but rich in love and togetherness. There's a wonderful quotation from that fantastic description of the Cratchits having Christmas dinner, very moving and poignant description. Quote, Bob served it out, this is Christmas dinner, with beaming looks, while the chestnuts on the fire sputtered and cracked noisily. It's a humble image, but it's a hearth, which is really important in the novella. It's a hearth that crackles with familial warmth. And it's, of course, as we well know from the description of Scrooge's own fire, it is a flame and a warmth that Scrooge himself has long neglected. So up to now, we've treated cold and warmth as a motif. It's a recurring or repeated image across in this case, across the novella. But I think in some ways it's more than that. Dickens is drawing on what we would call a conceptual metaphor. That is, it's a metaphor that we use every day in our thinking. So if we go with the central metaphor, emotional state is temperature. That is, emotional state is directly compared to temperature. So what does cold kind of stand in for? Cold is all about emotional isolation. It's about cruelty. It's about a callous attitude. And it's also about death. On the other hand, warmth. Warmth is all about generosity, empathy, and life itself. So when Scrooge ices his counting house, Dickens isn't just going, oh, it's a bit chilly in there. Dickens is signalling a spiritual and a moral coldness, a spiritual and moral chill. When Fred glows, therefore, he embodies openness and joy. By framing these emotions in terms of temperature, Dickens is tapping into something very deep. It's very sort of deep cognitive patterning. We as humans generally instinctively link warmth with affection and cold with rejection. And so the real power of this motif and this metaphor shows in Scrooge's redemption. As the spirits guide him, think about the Ghost of Christmas Past, we glimpse a lonely boy by a feeble fire. Scrooge's youth is chilly. In the present, Ghost of Christmas Present, he sees the Cratchit warmth, but he also shows us Fred's glow. And then finally, Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, we have that idea that Scrooge faces a cold, lonely death. It's kind of the ultimate freezing. But then comes Christmas morning and the culmination, the fruition of this process of moral transformation. Scrooge wakes up transformed, not just spiritually, but in terms of temperature. He's kind of thermally transformed, we might say. Scrooge is no longer frozen by fear or regret, but he's alive with warmth and energy and joy. There's a great quotation, fantastic pairing. Before I go through this quotation about Scrooge, just quickly we'll go back to that one for Fred. So I'm just going to read it to you again. Listen to this. He had so heated himself with rapid walking in the fog and frost that he was all in a glow. His face was ruddy and handsome, his eyes sparkled, his breath smoked again. Then listen to this quotation. This is a description of Scrooge in stave 5, when the transformation is really complete. This is Scrooge, he was so fluttered and so glowing with good intentions. So if we think about that word glowing, it's a word that was used to refer back to Fred, all the way back in Fred's introduction in stave 1. And now, lovely structuring and language patterning, now it's Scrooge that's glowing. So Fred was glowing at the start, and now too, in addition to Fred, Scrooge is glowing, just like his kind, benevolent, warm, generous nephew. Okay? The fluttered is interesting. I know this is slightly drifting away, but it still matters. The fluttered is interesting because think about the associations of lightness. Okay? He's no longer carrying around that chain that he's been forging and making link by link. Okay? The chain, of course, that Marley too has been working on and now is lugging around in the afterlife. So, Scrooge, stave 5, glowing with good intentions. This is Dickens showing us a man literally, but also crucially, symbolically, metaphorically warmed. Scrooge's transformation is complete, not just in attitude, but in emotional temperature. In stave 5, Scrooge radiates goodwill. So by the end, his world is no longer foggy or frosty. It's full of light, it's full of warmth, it's full of human connection. And Dickens gives us that final image of a man reconnected with the world. Quote, this is right again at the end of the book, stave 5, he became as good a friend, as good a master, as good a man as the good old city knew. This is the man who once iced his office in the dog days, now glowing with humanity. Scrooge doesn't just feel warm, he is now the embodiment of warmth itself. And so the purpose of these Making Connections episodes is to just draw your attention to the kind of patterning that we've discussed in the episode today. This is true in A Christmas Carol, it's true in Lord of the Flies, it's true in all of the poetry anthology, and it's true, of course, crucially, in Macbeth. So we're going to be doing similar sorts of episodes all about those texts too. But for now, I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you on the next one.